Our next speaker, I don't think needs too much introduction. She's the Vice President of Government Affairs and Research Operations for Virgin Galactic. She's also a member of our community and a member of our board, the ASGSR board. And I am pretty sure she's our first board member to have actually gone to space. So we are so excited and proud to have her as part of our community. And one of her roles at Virgin Galactic is to work with research customers to fly their science and technology experiments in space. And that means you and I. And so we're very excited about the potential that means for our future. So she's had a really exciting year, and I look forward to her telling us about these new opportunities for space-based research. Please welcome Sirisha Bandla.
Awesome. Hello. Good morning, everyone. Dr. Foster, thank you for that awesome introduction. As they say, I may be the first, but I won't be the last. Dr. Foster, thank you so much for leading us into, I know, what will be a successful ASGSR conference here in Baltimore, and also for picking up some of the slack when I didn't do some of my board duties while I prepared for space. So thank you so much. So I am going to talk about my space flight today, but as an aerospace engineer, I'm going to nerd out about the vehicle that took me there first. And Again, it's so great to be here in person. I definitely relearn how to do makeup on the bottom half of my face for you guys. All right, so I wanted to start out with a little bit of a mission statement of why we go. Galactic's mission is to open space up for all, and I know that sounds really broad, but we are really working to get more people into space, and I think personally, that's going to have a very profound downstream effect on the work that you all do, and also just on our daily lives. And we're basically building around not only that physical trip to space, but all of the experience, the journey that leads up to it, the space flight, and the post-flight experience and reflections. We're going to have so many more people going to space. They're coming from different backgrounds, different cultures, different geographic regions that may not have a national space program. And I do hope that those people go back to each of their respective communities, and I think it will have an impact. And I think most of our future astronauts are going to go back and drive change for good. And we hope to create a community around that and facilitate that if at all possible. So our vehicle system, of course. So this was my ride to space. She's a beaut. So Virgin Galactic operates a hybrid vehicle system. It consists of an aircraft and a spacecraft. And I do see what you mean, Dr. Zaburkin, about the blinking screen. So the aircraft itself is our mothership, and its primary purpose is to carry the spacecraft, our spaceship vehicle, to its release altitude. It's always piloted, so you've got two pilots in mothership, you've got two pilots in spaceship. And our vehicle, the mothership itself, actually goes much higher than commercial airliners. So we've actually gotten quite a lot of interest in using that vehicle to conduct science and technology developments as well. The spacecraft itself is the Spaceship 2 class of vehicles. It's got two pilots and can carry up to 6 people or the equivalent amount of research, autonomous payloads, people, mix of both to space and back home. So I think I just mentioned this a little bit, but we've had 4 test flights to date carrying people and research payloads, all from the Flight Opportunities Program that I know you all know so well. They've been such a big supporter of the community and have provided a lot of opportunities to fly technology payloads. I know there's a few Flight Opportunities people here at the conference, so definitely reach out to them. But we've flown autonomous payloads on racks, as you can see here, as well as crew, which I'll talk about my flight, but we've had a flight with Beth Moses, our chief astronaut trainer, as well in the past. There we go. So our manufacturing is done in Mojave, California. So that vehicle you see with the awesome paint job is the vehicle that took me and my crew to space. It's called VSS Unity. This is, a dated picture. The other vehicle you see does not look like that anymore. I'll show you a picture of its current status. But that was the latest vehicle to roll out of our flight line. And I think it's really cool to say we're creating a fleet of spacecraft. It's really showing how the commercial industry is moving towards commercial operations. All of our commercial ops will happen out of this facility you see here in Spaceport America in New Mexico. This is our gateway to space facility. It's where I trained. It's where our future astronauts will prepare for their flight. It's got the space for all of our researchers to prepare their payloads, and if they are going to space as well, they'll do both. They'll prepare their payloads at this gateway to space facility, as well prep for their flight. And a typical profile here, I'll go in, so I will say these are not VG sanctioned fonts. I do not check the fonts before I transferred, but so sorry, Galactic. So this is a typical profile for our vehicle. We start off in a mated configuration with mothership and spaceship mated as you see in the first box. We take off from a runway like a normal aircraft. Fly up to about 45,000 feet, and once we've done all the checks, mothership releases spaceship. Spaceship then lights its rocket motor, which burns for about 60 seconds. This was one of my favorite parts of the space flight. Of course, the view was incredible, but the rocket motor boost, especially being an engineer, I just could not stop smiling and giggling, which was a little embarrassing, but it was incredible, and it's really incredible to see the sky just transition from that blue to black in that phase. And it's a phase of spaceflight that we don't often talk about, but I think it was one of my favorite parts. Of course, after rocket motor cutoff, spaceship then coasts up to apogee, and this is the microgravity period where a lot of you are interested in conducting your work. Either through autonomous payloads, or you can unstrap and do human-tended research during this portion. And this is also where you'll get that incredible view. And I have really tried to think of another word besides incredible to describe the view. I even brought up synonyms for incredible on dictionary.com or whatever, and I just honestly cannot find a better word. So until then, I am going to use just the word incredible. I cannot describe it any other way at this point. And then, of course, we are on a suborbital trajectory, so we re-enter and then land as a glider at Spaceport America. And for our vehicle, if your research needs to be immediately removed, right after we'll stop, as soon as our crew has been cleared to approach the spacecraft, they can take out your research and get it to whatever environment it needs to be in. So to talk about my flight, so on July 11th, Virgin had its first fully crewed flight on VSS Unity. I was so honored to be able to have the opportunity to go. It was my work with this community, as well as some of my work at Purdue under Professor Colcott, who I know is in the audience as well, that availed me this opportunity to go on this flight. We had myself, we had Richard Branson, Colin Bennett, and Beth Moses on the flight, and we all had been chosen to evaluate and test the experience of the vehicle and its capabilities. And we all were looking at different parts of the flight. My role in particular was to evaluate the human-tended research capabilities. Richard Branson's role was to evaluate the experience from a spaceflight tourism perspective. Colin was evaluating multiple items in the cabin during boost and the weightlessness period. And Beth Moses is our chief astronaut trainer. She trained us for this flight and quite frankly did a very, very good job. So I'm going to play a quick video. It does not have audio because I've had bad luck with audio in the past, so it will be a few seconds of awkward silence, but the video is incredible, promise. So obviously this is the release of our vehicle in New Mexico. Rocket motor boost, my favorite part of the flight. You get about 3 Gs of acceleration into the chest during the 60-second burn. And then there's the vehicle with us in it heading off to space. It still gives me goosebumps every single time I see that video. It's just incredible. Like, I was freaking on that, that spacecraft. It's so amazing. So I'm not going to take away the thunder of the researchers that put together this experiment that I took up. Dr. Furl, Dr. Rob Furl, and Dr. Annalisa Paul, who I know you all know very well, may be in the audience, not sure. Oh, there they are. I'm going to embarrass them. They're on the last row. Can you wave again? There they are. So I'm going to talk about the experiment I did from a very top-level operational view. Dr. Furl and Dr. Paul will definitely be sharing the results when they're ready, and we'll definitely, if you have any questions in the meantime, want to point you to them. And then, of course, I will plug their presentation when they have decided to make it. So what I did on this flight, if you'll see in a different picture, I have a bag attached to my leg. It carried 3 Kennedy Space Center fixation tubes that carried the Arabidopsis plant sample that Dr. Paul and Dr. Furl are looking at the gene expressions in the transitory G environment. So they've done a lot of work. I know a lot of people know them in the community. They've done a lot of work on orbit, looking at the gene expressions in the microgravity, but this is an opportunity to look at the expressions from a high G to low G environment and that transitory environment. So I carried 3 KFTs with the Arabidopsis sample as well as a fixative. I actuated them at different phases of the flight, basically to preserve the sample so that the University of Florida researchers here could take a look at a later date. So the first KFT I conducted was on L-4, so launch 4 minutes ahead of release on from mothership. The second one, it's a little bit hard, but I apologize for the image. So it's the second one is the one I conducted here when I'm still in my seat strapped in. You can see from where the Earth is in my window, we're still on that ascent up to apogee. And the final one I conducted at near the end of the weightlessness period. So you can see in that image, which is lit up a little bit better, that I'm actuating the 3rd KFTs. And you can see I still have a grin, which never left my face during the flight. So that one was basically, I did that one while I was floating in the cabin. So, oops. Actually, let's go back. So there's a lot of opportunities, and I'm really excited to start flying all of you all, the research community, to do human-tended research. We've had a lot of interest, we've had a lot of ideas, and this is something we want to continue hearing more about. Obviously, there's opportunities to conduct experiments that are in your pockets, attached to your leg, but we also have racks where you can go up, once you're unstrapped, you can go interact with a rack. You can unload a larger payload during the microgravity period. There's just a lot of opportunities, and I can't wait to see what comes out of this community. I have some VG updates on the next slide, but maybe I'll just get to that in Q&A. I just wanted to maybe talk about a few more things, maybe a few frequently asked questions I'll just address right off the bat. One, I was not nervous. I think that's the number one question I get. I've been dreaming of going to space since I was young. I was inspired by a lot of astronauts ahead of me, the way they described their experience, the way they described how spaceflight affects humanity really inspired me to get into the field. So was not nervous, was more focused on the anticipation of what I'd actually feel like and what my feelings would be when I actually saw that view. Obviously, I still can't communicate them very well, but we'll get to that. To what I had for breakfast. For some reason, this question gets asked a lot. I had toast with peanut butter and banana and Earl Grey tea as a nod to the greatest starship captain that I have. I have Earl Grey every day, actually. And then 3, just wanted to talk again about the effects, the view. Everyone asks, how was the view? And again, I've said, it's incredible. I wish I could describe it in another way. Whenever we create timelines for researchers to conduct their work, we will definitely be working into that timeline a moment for you to go and take in the view. And I do understand the work you're doing is really important, but I also truly believe that taking in that view is also very important. What I should have done is they have an amazing image that just captures my expression when during my tasks, I finally got to the window and took in the view. And I think that probably captures more of what I was feeling than the word incredible. But this kind of plays into what we're going to see when we send more and more people to space, especially researchers. We're going to have a great impact on the technology development, science, of course, but creating greater diversity of people to go up with different skill sets, different experiences. They're going to be able to communicate. They're going to be able to have an incredible impact in the communities. Just this year, with commercial capabilities, I became, with my flight, the 4th Indian to go to space. With Blue Origin's flight, they sent up the youngest, Oliver Damon, and the oldest, Wally Funk, to space, and then did it again. They'd sent up William Shatner. With Inspiration 4, I know that mission inspired a lot of us as well. We saw Haley Arsenault, cancer survivor, first person with a prosthetic, go to space. Dr. Cian Proctor, the first African-American woman pilot to pilot a spacecraft to space. We're seeing some of the effects already. And I look into the audience, I've gotten to know a lot of researchers. You all do incredible work in your field. But as I've gotten to know you, I know that you guys are, I've gotten to know that you've got great skills. Some of you are amazing writers, artists, musicians. All of that does play into a role. And I think when you guys go up, you'll be able to do some incredible work in your field. I know a lot of you are educators. I know you're going to be able to inspire a lot of students to join the field. And I truly believe we're going to change the world. So with that, great statement. I'll just stop and take questions. Hopefully I left enough time.
Oh, there's lots of questions.
Okay.
Lots of questions. So that was a lot of fun. So thank you so much. I'm going to start at the bottom. So some more facts here. How many Gs are experienced in the boost portion of the flight?
Yeah, so you get 3G pretty consistently into your chest. We actually perform a turn. So we drop and then we turn towards where we want to go, which is up, space. And during that turn, you do experience up to 4 Gs down into your head. And it builds up and it's for a few seconds during the turn, and then you get back into your 3G. And for me, I did not think it was that bad. I thought it was something that I think everyone is going to be able to do. I was pleasantly surprised after the boost. I did not have any effects after it. Once we had rocket motor cutoff, I was ready to go.
So NASA Suborbital Crew and Flight Opportunities Program are opening the doors of spaceflight to NASA and NASA-funded PIs, as you alluded to. What excites you the most of what that will allow our community, the ASGSR community, to achieve?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I definitely think having more researchers fly with their experiments is going to not only create just a great impact on the work, academic work, research, science, technology development, as well as education, inspiring another set of incredible students to join the field. But as you all noticed, I carried University of Florida's work up. I was basically following their instructions. I think having researchers and scientists fly with their own payloads, they're going to be able to make adjustments on the fly. If honestly, I think I switched 2 of the KFTs. I'm pretty sure I put that in my notes. These are the things that a researcher will be able to adjust to during the flight and create and make observations that someone who's not trained in the field will be able to make.
Well, so I'm going to ask another question in a different way from the audience. So did you find that distracting? Like, did you feel that how did you mentally prepare to do the experiment, and was all of it very distracting to get it done? Like, how would you maybe improve how to do your science in the future on these flights?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was not distracting. I actually chair flew my timelines like multiple times a day leading up to the flight. So it was almost second nature when I was, during the flight. Everything from seatbelt to doing the experiment, I was able to do pretty quickly, and I was prepared for it. And that's part of what Galactic's team is going to be working with the researcher to do. We'll have a consultation, of course, create your timeline, prepare you for that timeline. We have a mock-up of our vehicle at our training facility, so you'll pretend, you'll be in the seat, you'll be going through your timeline multiple times ahead of the flight. So I have no doubt that you'll be very well prepared, not only for doing your work, but also to get to a window and take a look at that amazing view.
So there's a couple questions here about the time of microgravity and the acceleration range. So how long were you in microgravity for? And I don't know if that was specifically mentioned.
Yeah, so it's about 3 minutes. You'll get an okay for when you're able to unstrap. As you saw in the image, well, kind of, it was very dark. I was actually starting some of the work while I was strapped. So the time you're unstrapped and the total time in microgravity differs, but it's about 3 minutes.
Oh gosh, so many here. So how did your body feel when you came back? Did you feel anything, or was it right back to business? That's the question.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So again, I knew what to expect from an operational standpoint. I've flown parabolic flights. I flew in our extra aircraft to do high G maneuvers to prep. But of course, you never really know until you've done it. So I was pleasantly surprised. Right after boost, during the microgravity period, I had no sense of nauseousness or disorientation, was able to do all of my tasks. When I got back, again, I felt, I think probably just slightly hot in the New Mexico desert sun in my flight suit, but nothing nauseous or disorienting feelings after spaceflight. I was just really excited and really wanting to do it again.
So kind of dovetailing with the other question, you mentioned, oh wait, I lost my question, sorry. What is the quality of microgravity? Did you have any kind of measurements on that?
Yes, we did, and I knew I was going to get asked this question, and I saw the data right after my flight, and I'm now blanking. So whoever asked me that question, come find me. We are happy to share acceleration data to help aid design development of your research ahead of even making a decision to fly with us. So come find me, and I'm happy to share some of that info.
And a lot of questions are coming in about your training. How you said that as a scientist you could fly with your experiment. How long did you train for this? How long did you train to work on the University of Florida experiment? What for the next experiment or the next protocol for the next scientist that goes into space? What would you recommend training-wise?
Yeah, absolutely. So I trained for about 3 weeks ahead of my flight. A future astronaut will typically train on site about 5 days. For researchers, we'll likely have them ahead of time because they're going to be doing much more complex choreography in our cabin. Basically did a parabolic flight, did some extra flights for high G. I actually wore the KFT bag during some of the high G flights just to make sure nothing moved and nothing, I could still pull anything out if I needed to. I know Dr. Paul and Dr. Furl don't believe me, but when I started working with them on doing this, prepping this experiment for one of our first crewed flights, I had not known I was flying. So we were working together to prep it for whoever was going to fly, and we talked about this probably years in advance of actually coming to fruition, and then we began working probably a month and a half ahead of the flight. So a lot of kudos to the University of Florida team as well as the Galactic team for getting that through our safety reviews and getting it prepped for me to fly. But it really depends on the research. It depends on the complexity of the payload. We can start a year in advance. We can start a couple months ahead of time. I think the more time, the better is my preference, so that we can really set up the person that's flying, the researcher, for success on the flight.
Some questions about environmental impact. How are you monitoring CO2 emissions? What technology are you using to monitor the impact that these flights have on the ecosystem? And wondered if you had any thoughts or measurements for that.
Yeah, so we are working on that for future flights, and definitely during our time during flight tests, that is something that we're going to be looking at, and how we can monitor and, of course, mitigate future commercial flights impacts. We always provide offsets for our flights for people that are flying on our vehicles, and I think and of course, in terms of our own company, just in the footprint that we have on the ground, we always aim to be as sustainable as possible. And then, of course, I look to the community as well. We've had quite a lot of interest in using these vehicles to monitor what's happening on Earth. Not only spaceship, but also White Knight, who's flying much higher than commercial airliners. So we are working on it. There's always more work to do, because our planet is worth it, of course.
So this is also about the future of Virgin Galactic missions. Are there talks about expanding it? What's the longest duration Virgin Galactic is considering for these space flights? Is it a few hours or potentially days in the future?
So at the moment, we are focused on our suborbital commercial flights. So at the moment, it's the flight profile that I've spoken about. In the future, we are looking at new classes of spaceships, and of course, the advancements we'll make on that technology will provide different results in the future. But at the moment, we're focused on the profile and getting up to 400 flights a year with our suborbital vehicle.
And so you talked about some flight opportunities for U.S. researchers, but it sounded like you said investigators from all countries are welcome. What are the funding opportunities for people to start applying for opportunities to fly with you?
Yeah, so I would say flight opportunities is pretty amazing. Not only do they have the grants for flying payloads, but also they have started providing grants for researchers to fly with their payloads, so to conduct human-tended research. ROSES also has opportunities for science campaigns on suborbital vehicles, and Flight Opportunities is now also offering opportunities for education payloads. So I know a lot of researchers want to involve their community in their campaigns as well, and you can get funding through Flight Opportunities to do that. And I think it's so very important in training and educating and inspiring the next gen for all of us in the community to do that.
So Venkat, out there from JPL, has a question to you about some of the differences in training between NASA that you've observed, and is the training more rigorous or less? So jumping back to training a little bit.
Yeah, for NASA, I guess if we're talking about the difference between NASA and suborbital, it's definitely less. If we're talking about what the training would be for NASA astronauts flying on suborbital, it'll depend on what the astronaut is planning on doing on the vehicle and what their mission and their goals are for the vehicle, for their flight. So just to talk about commercial tourism flights, so someone that wants to fly for tourism purposes, it'll be about 5 days. You'll learn all of the operational items for the flight, how to buckle in, how to get out of your seat, what to do in in case of emergency. You'll meet your crew. A lot of them, I think that is an experience we don't, I didn't talk about as much, but getting to know and work with my crew and spending that time together was absolutely a part of the journey I'll never forget. And then we also talked to you about, as I mentioned, the holistic experience about what you would like to do with your flight, how you want to go engage in the community, and we do want to be a part of that as well. And that works into those 5 days. For a researcher, which I know you all are interested in, it's going to be probably around 2 weeks. Again, depending on what your goals are, how complex your payload, and how complex your movements are going to be in the cabin. So we might recommend parabolic flight. We might recommend some high G flights where you do some of the tasks. So it really depends on what you are trying to accomplish for research, because we will tailor the training program. Beth Moses and her team will tailor the training program for your success.
And someone thankfully pointed out to me that NASA Flight Opportunities is going to facilitate a session with researchers to talk more about the program that Sirisha is talking about, and that's going to be 12:30 on Thursday. To learn more about these opportunities. So I hope you'll attend to those. And
definitely don't want to miss that one.
And someone asked if you experienced any lower back pain. I'm not sure if this is related to the flight or just in general. I'm not sure.
Well, I have been getting older, and it just takes one wrong hotel bed for me to experience lower back pain these days. No, for the flight, I did not experience any lower back pain. Our flight suits are designed by Under Armour. They actually have padding pockets designed specifically for our vehicle and for our seats. So we are taking all of that into account for your comfortability.
And I think this is going to be a very easy question for you to answer. Would you go back if you could?
Yes.
It
was the first thing that popped into my mind when we landed. I was like, I can't wait to go back. That being said, I'd gladly give up my seat for anybody that has not had that experience to go in my place, because it really is our perception-changing, life-changing experience.
Sorry, one more question about when are you going back?
Oh, there is no current plans for me to be manifested on a future flight. But if there's an opening, I'll definitely try to slide in.
Absolutely. And I think there was one more about training that I might have missed. I think it was about breathing techniques. Did you do any kind of breathing techniques or anything to prepare you for the actual flight?
Yeah, so along with our training team, so Beth Moses, we have a great medical team, Dr. Tara Castleberry. They all went through some of the breathing techniques for me for the high G portions. I definitely practiced them in the extra aircraft as we pulled some high G maneuvers, so I was familiar with it. During the flight, I didn't really do them. I just didn't feel the need. And that is thanks to the training. During the training and during some of the high G work we did, I definitely was trained to recognize when I would need it. And in my mind, I figured I would just do it just to be safe. But I didn't really need to do it, and I didn't. What I did do, I think if you look at the video, is just like dramatic breathing. And it was mostly for me personally. Sometimes when I get excited, I hold my breath. And I know that about myself. So I just mentally, I think mostly you can see me like kind of breathing. It was just me reminding myself to like, don't hold your breath. This is awesome. Just keep breathing. But I did not need to do the maneuver. But you are trained on it. I think for anyone, if there's no harm in doing that during the high G portion.
And then I guess the last question will be, when is the next Virgin Galactic flight?
Yeah, so this is on the update slide. I decided to skip and just talk about how I think this is going to change the world. So we are now going into an enhancement period. So we're taking our vehicles and working on some enhancements both to mothership and spaceship that's going to increase the frequency, decrease the amount of time between flights. So to increase the frequency of the flights in the future when we go into commercial operations. So our next flight is going to be after that enhancement period. Q3 of next year. We will have a couple test flights. We will still have the Italian research flight. The Italian Air Force bought out a flight to do actually purely research work. So they have racks of payloads. They've got 3 mission specialists that are going to be doing human-tended payloads, as well as wearing wearables that track and monitor a lot of functions that the researchers are going to be doing. And then after that, Q4 2022, we will start commercial ops.
Outstanding. Well, that was awesome. And thank you so much for participating and as our keynote speaker for the ASGSR meeting. So thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.